Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later because we've got what might be one of the most exciting new Transformers toys of all time to review today, and that is thanks to the fine folks at Hobby Genki. Yes, up for consideration today is none other than the absolutely incredible Missing Link Arcee, and we've got both the C07 and C08 versions, so we'll go through all the differences today, and I just genuinely cannot believe this is real. This is the G1 Arcee toy that never released back in 1986, never released since, and now finally it's been made real. Now I've already had a sneak peek at the C07 version. This is obviously modelled after those original prototype colours of Arcee for the toy that was considered at least for 1986 release, but we're also going to be unboxing the C08 version, which many people are calling anime colours. That's not technically true, although I can obviously see why people are saying that, so let's get into all of that and see what they're all about today. Worth saying that both of these come packaged in very attractive boxes, modelled after the original Japanese packaging of course, but with all new character art in this case. And in many ways this is like unboxing a new G1 toy, an experience that I've not had since, well, a long time. Slightly different here because although it does come in the polystyrene, it's got this sort of clamshell layer on the top, and there we go, that's G1 Arcee, a G1 toy of Arcee at long last. Absolutely incredible. Now also of note in the box is that you have a decoder so you can finally check out Arcee's tech specs. Both versions come with a set of completely identical stickers, identical in design and colour and everything, and I'm going to need to decide if I apply these on either version or not. You then get a couple of character cards too, and these are really interesting because the classic prototype colours version is on a sort of pink backing, which is actually the same style as the one that we got for C02 Convoy, which was the anime version of Optimus. But then if you look at the card that we got with C01 Convoy, the toy style card, you'll see that that is the same style as the one that we get with the pink and white Arcee, which many people are referring to as the anime colours, but I don't think that's what this is meant to be. I think Takara intend this as the toy style colour that we never got, the kind of production version, not the prototype, the production version that would have been done in 1986, and there are some tells on the toy itself that I think indicate that to be true, as we'll see. In any case, there's no doubt that the pink and white one works very well as a kind of cartoon colours version all the same, and regardless, just look at that for a pair of sublime Arcee alt modes, right? This is just amazing to see up close. Like honestly, budget willing, this might be one of the biggest cases of why not both that I've ever seen in Transformers history, right? Like if you're gonna double dip on a mold, this is the mold to do it on, because again, if the finances allow for it, I just think that how could you decide? How could you pick one? They're just too good. I mean, it's so funny to me that this thing is remarkably clean in terms of the design, because we've had numerous Arcee toys from over the years that have tried to do the anime accurate thing, and they've rarely been as clean or as tidy as this. This is so good. No real kibble anywhere really, even from the rear. I mean, even the underneath view is quite clean and neat, There's this little bit there which is the kind of abdomen that sort of just peeks out from over the sides, and that's about as near a compromise as you get, but otherwise impeccable. It rolls really nicely on the table as well. It all feels really sort of super solid and stable. It's just got that kind of old school G1 charm to it. And that's also thanks to little features such as the rub sign here, which of course, yes, she is an Autobot in case you're worried about that, but just look at that. The painted finish here is immaculate too. Really sharp lines, really nice crisply applied paint. It just looks beautiful up close. Same is true of that red fin at the back there and the little bits of paint on the side. I do think that the hues that they've chosen for this prototype version are just spot on too. Nice little clear windshield on this version, and of course there is a little seat there as well, into which you can pop a Dinonaut if you have one to hand, and of course you can use the little fellas that come with Sunstreaker and Corden for example, or a vintage guy like this one. Alternatively, you have the blue windshield on the pink and white version, and then you can kind of just about squeeze a Masterpiece Daniel in there if that works for you. He is a little bit too big to fit, but still, it could probably be made to work. And once again, I'm just marveling at these colours. This pink, this white, the grey, it's absolutely spot on. I think this might be the best Arcee car mode I've ever seen. Like, obviously the masterpiece is really, really good and more cartoon accurate in many ways, but this new missing link design is just so sleek, and there's just a simplicity to it that many of the other Arcee toys don't have. And as we're going to see, the fact that it transforms as a kind of cohesive thing with no real fold-up panels or parts forming or any of that kind of stuff, it's really quite remarkable in my opinion. Just kind of funny to consider that they had to go all the way back to that unused 1986 design to kind of unearth something this perfect, you know? They had it right first time, maybe. There are some ways that this feels different to what we might have got in 1986 though, and one of those is this weapon storage, which is only available on the prototype version, but you can just kind of stick a little gun just underneath there in the car mode, and that's definitely not something I would have expected to have found on a vintage toy. It's also seemingly not an option on the pink and white version, because although the space does still exist, the blaster is a different design and a little bit longer. Both versions though have these little peg holes on top of the car mode so you can peg the weapon in like so, and that is something that feels at least relatively authentic to G1, because although not every toy from 1986 could do it, like Cup and Blur, at least Hot Rod could, and the 1987 Target Master versions could as well, so I guess it's in keeping with that. Speaking of those classic toys, here she is with them at long last. Finally realised, finally made real in toy form. This is just a sight to behold. She looks terrific with them. That pink and white colour scheme is just spot on, and again I think works quite well as the toy that we potentially could have had back in 1986. And again, I'm sure there are plenty out there that will insist that the prototype version is the kind of proper toy colours because that's the original prototype from back in the day and whatever else, but again I do think that Takara Tomy sort of intended the pink and white one as the kind of proper toy version if you like, and this is the prototype, and we'll see more evidence for that in the robot mode, but either way it doesn't really matter. The fact is they're both glorious, they both look amazing, and they're both just a dream come true. But anyway, we'll get to all of that before too long, but I do just want to acknowledge that this video is brought to you by the fine folks at Hobby Genki, a Japanese collectibles store who are based in Osaka, Japan, and they've got tons of Robots in Disguise stuff in stock and available for pre-order right now, and some amazing prices once you convert it from Japanese yen. They've also got plenty of low-cost, good quality shipping options, so I wholeheartedly recommend that you give them a look using the affiliate link in the description below and go and get yourself a bit of a bargain. So it's a weird thing to be transforming what is essentially a G1 toy for the first time ever. That's not an experience I expected to have again. But anyway, the first thing you want to do is just flip over this little bit at the bottom just there. Next you can just unclip the arms from the sides. That feels very old school G1 in its way. And you also want to just flatten down that windscreen like so. Then you've got this rear section which just needs to be untabbed, and then that all kind of rotates forward and sits over the windscreen just there, and that leaves you free to bring the legs out and swing them down like so. You've then got this main body piece which is on a large hinge, so that just hinges back into place and just clicks in there. Before you bring down the front of the bonnet to become the chest, so you just unclip it like so, just rotate it round and then just click it into place. And not forgetting to extend her legs, which is a step that I feel like a couple of people have already forgotten online from what I've seen, because it gives her kind of strange proportions otherwise, but they do just kind of click into place. And then she even has little heels that just fold out, and that's quite fiddly to do, but it gives her a bit of stability. And all in, that must be probably the best Arcee transformation I've ever seen, certainly the simplest and the cleanest and the most straightforward, because again, there's no parts forming, there's no panels, there's no obvious kind of fudging it to make it work or anything like this. It actually feels like a remarkably cohesive G1 transformation, and it's a very fun process and a really, really pleasing result as well. Just look at that. Now, there's a fair bit to say about these two robot modes, but the first thing I do kind of want to acknowledge is that they feel exceptionally different thanks to the colour schemes and the fact that they've actually got different head sculpts as well. And I didn't really appreciate how different they are until right now, having them here in front of me. For starters, the prototype version is rocking a really retro-feeling Princess Leia vibe, and I absolutely adore it. I kind of love the angular lines of the face, the blue eyes, the little orange lips. It's just beautiful to me. This is actually perfect. Conversely, the pink and white version is definitely rocking a bit more of an anime flair, and it's got a slightly more humanoid face with blue eyes again and a different kind of tapered helmet, and I definitely like what it's got going for it. It's my least favourite of the two just because of how much I prefer the prototype version, I think, but still this does look really good. But even beyond those different head sculpts, there's just so much to talk about here between these two. I've seen a few comments about these wheels on the shoulders because they weren't there on the actual prototype, of course, but but that was probably like a wooden mock-up or something like that was just sort of intended to be, like a statement of intent, not an actual transforming model. So, of course, here you've got those actual practicalities built in. Definitely also seen quite a few comments about the thighs, and to be fair, yes, they are pretty chunky, pretty thigh-tastic, and they do kind of taper out quite a bit, but actually I think it works really well with this colour scheme in particular. There are some other concessions versus the original prototype, of course, such as on the outside of the arms just here, you've got what is essentially the doors, I think, of the car, which you will see that they're not on that prototype, and that's fine, that's to be understood that, this is a real working transformable toy. But likewise, she does have very skinny lower legs and heels as well, but actually I've found it to be quite stable so far. It's not presented a problem. In comparison to the orange version, the pink and white toy is definitely looking a lot more anime styled, as I said, but still I think that this is not necessarily intended to be a cartoon representation, necessarily. For one thing, you can see that she's got a grey collar just here, which is found on some of the earlier animation models and not on the final one, where it's white. Similarly here, you can see that she's got pink ears, and again, if we trace this back to an earlier animation model, you'll see that all of those features are intact. So, to me, that is a statement of intent of this being something that would have existed prior to the final animation model, much as many of the 1986 toys were also based on earlier versions of their cartoon models. In fairness, we did kind of see this colour scheme in the cartoon at least once in the episode Only Human, where you can see she's got the grey collar and the other hallmarks of that earlier animation model, but certainly for the most part, what you think of as cartoon Arcee is not exactly and slavishly what we're getting here, at least not completely so. But again, that's not me saying it can't work as a cartoon version, whatever the intention is. In fact, I think it does, and it looks fantastic versus stuff like my beloved retro G1 Hot Rod, which is, of course, also done in that kind of anime style. So, if that's how you want to display it and have it on your shelf, it absolutely works. Much in the same way the prototype version does alongside my own custom of the pink prototype of G1 Hot Rod as well, and this was always something I admired from catalogues and everything back in the 80s, and now seeing these two together, it's just a bit of a weird experience. All of which sort of naturally leads on to a conversation about stickers, because I guess in some ways it would kind of make sense to put the stickers on the prototype version, because that's the version that sort of more clearly represents the toy in this case. But I'm actually not going to go that route, because to me, this thing as it is represents that original prototype so wonderfully already. It wasn't embellished with loads of stickers and everything in all the photography that we've ever seen of it, which is not much. And, the missing link as is just a recreation of that. No stickers, no added detail, it's just perfect as it is. Whereas if you do take the pink and white one as kind of the toy we never got, then actually I think she makes a great candidate for having the stickers applied, and certainly if you look, that's how Takara Tomy have done it in all of their promotional photography as well, so I think they're onto something. I don't know if we'll ever get an actual anime version of Arcee and Missing Link, but either way, I think this is a good toy candidate for my collection anyway, and I think it's going to look superb once the stickers are applied alongside those 1986 guys. Of course though, this is actually a modern toy, and so there is plenty of articulation involved, as you would expect from Missing Link, and the head will move up and down really nicely, and from side to side, all joints are really stiff. Arms are really interesting because they'll move out to the side, you've got a little bit of bicep rotation going on in there as well, so that's all really good, but there is another joint just here, kind of on the side of the chest, the sort of shoulder pad, if you will, and that will move up and down also. You then get a pretty decent bend at the elbow, up to about 90 degrees, and there's a surprising amount at the hips as well, which will go all the way up, so that's really, really good, and then you get a very decent knee bend as well, well past 90 degrees, and there is then an ankle tilt, although it's very stiff on both copies in my experience. It means that whilst these two possess a sort of innate vintage charm, they're actually pretty poseable when you get your hands on them, I mean, they don't have waist swivels and that kind of stuff, but the legs really do a lot of the heavy lifting in this case, and they're great fun to mess around with. I mean, genuinely, it's sort of incredible to me that this toy, which is meant to represent the original prototype, is probably one of the best Arcee toys I've ever handled, if not the best. Like, it's really nicely articulated, it's not super compromised or anything like this through transformation, the car mode's really good, the robot mode looks spot on, and I think when you add that to the sort of innate cool of seeing the prototype made real after so many years, I'm having a hard time thinking this isn't going to be my toy of the year. Honestly, it's that good. And I know it's not going to be for everybody. I know not everybody's going to look at this and be like, wow, that looks amazing. But to me, it's everything. And wow, this is such an interesting comparison versus stuff like the Masterpiece, because that toy, I really like it, but it's super complicated and it goes through such a process to get between the two modes, you know, to kind of make sense of the animation model. And the missing link just doesn't have to do any of that. I don't know, it's just simplicity by comparison, and I love it for that, and yet it's still so effective. And although it's still a very young line, if you'd have said to me at the beginning of Missing Link that we were going to be getting stuff like Prototype Arcee, I don't think I'd have believed you, but look at how well it's turned out. And yes, it's probably true that they feel a little bit different to the rest of the line so far in a couple of ways, and obviously they're kind of a modern interpretation of that vintage inspiration, you know, that original prototype, but still it sort of works. And I just love how cool and creative and fun all of these toys are. They're just the best thing going on in Transformers right now, in my opinion, and I absolutely cannot wait to see what's next. I mean, if you're going to give us Arcee, give us him, no? I mean, I do wonder if they'll do more anime versions as well, whether that's another Arcee, potentially, or a Sunstreaker. I mean, we know that we've got Bumblebee and Cliffjumper on the way, so I'm excited to see more of that too. But then we also know we've got an Ultra Magnus coming, so what if they do the rest of the movie cast? You know, Rodimus, Blaster, Perceptor, Wreck-Gar, all of these guys would be welcome in my book. I just cannot wait for all of it, and whatever else comes besides. For today, for the figures themselves, and everything else they represent, I couldn't be more impressed with these two. The fact that they've actually made them real just blow my mind. Honestly, it's the tootiest toot that ever tooted. It's a mega toot. Now, as already mentioned, this video is brought to you by the wonderful Hobby Genki, who are a Japanese collectibles store based in Osaka, Japan, with tons of robots in disguise available at amazing prices. Affiliate link in the description below. I'd also be grateful if you could leave me a like for today's effort, please, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, but otherwise that's it from me. So have a great rest of your day, and TTFN.